Bienvenidos, mi gente, and welcome to Somos de la Jotería, a special edition of Suddenly Jorge. This particular podcast is significant because it is the first time I've had the chance to feature a close friend, someone who has had a positive impact on my life. When I was tasked to create a living testimonio from a community routinely ignored or left out of traditional histories, I knew exactly what to do. Queer narratives may be diverse as hell, but they sometimes still lack certain points of view, despite our sharing similar experiences. That's what I kept in mind when I sat down with José Magaña-Hartford at his Palm Springs workshop in early spring. Jose is a 45-year-old Mexican-born Angeleno whose life history parallels mine, as we are both examples of traditional values and queer identity. I'd like to think we are both positive local narratives rooted in LA sprawl, emblematic of the cultural shifts in our city's evolving Latino cultures. I hope you enjoy the charla. You emigrated from Mexico, correct?
Correct.
And I'm a first gen here in Los Angeles from Mexican immigrant parents. But I want you to explain a little bit. So you emigrated, how old were you? It was in the 80s, correct?
Yeah, I think I was about 3 going on 4 years old, early 80s. And there was no trauma. I came here really with not knowing anything what was going on. Like, it wasn't explained to me, well, why we were coming here or where we were going. I just came along. I was the youngest, 3 years old. What am I going to be asking? So I just was with my mom, with my sister, landed, picked up by my dad, and taken to where we stayed, which was in South Central LA at the time. And we just kind of went day by day. I didn't start school right away, so I was just kind of living, day by day, just stuck around that little shack. It was literally a shack where we lived, in somebody's backyard off of Florence Avenue. And my sister and I were not in school. We're 3 years apart. And life was just waking up, having breakfast, and just go outside and play, kind of take it all in. My mom didn't really have a direction for us yet. My dad was out working, and we just see him at the end of the day. So there was really no real direct game plan at that time.
But when did things settle down? Like, when do you feel like the structure finally started to, like, okay, now we know we have a purpose here?
Well, we moved from that little set shack. My dad finally gathered enough money, and we rented a house in Compton. So we moved from South Central LA to a much better neighborhood in Compton, and lived there for, I want to say, 3 to 4 years. And that's when I started going to school. I started first grade here in California, not knowing a lick of English, reading, speaking, writing, and started first grade. And probably at that point in time, it was a little traumatic for me because I was the only one. I was totally by myself for the very first time in my life. My mom wasn't there. My sister wasn't there. None of my family was there. I was just there by myself in a room full of other kids with my age, and I could not communicate with any of them. So naturally, I started crying, and I would cry all day long until they called my mom, and she had to sit in the room with me to kind of calm me down. But that lasted probably about a week. I just did not want to be there, but I was forced to be there, to go to school. And I think from that point on, it's when my dad started seeing the progress, and he had then a plan in my mind. It was like, okay, well, now we're here. We started bringing over my other siblings.
My siblings and I we were all born in the U.S. All of us were born in Los Angeles. We started in Maywood, and they moved to Pico Rivera because my dad wanted to live in the suburbs and he wanted to live in a bedroom community, and he felt that would be better. They chose that particular community because of what it had to offer the families in terms of resources. It had its own schools and park and library. It had everything, basically. And at that point, it was transitioning away from being primarily white to Latino. And so they landed there at the very crest of the first Latino wave. And so he was very aware about the influences of the circle of what it was to be Latino. He was very Mexican-minded. My mom, not as much, because she was raised mostly in Texas. So she had a different sense of bilingualism and my multiculturalism. And so I never felt like he was imposing a certain sense you had to be this type of Mexican or to hold on to this type of Latino. But at the same time, he wanted us to be a certain type of American too. And so were you aware of that from your parents? Did they do the same thing to you, that they wanted you to go down a certain path?
They never voiced anything like, this is what you have to be, or this is what you have to do. They were more about showing us as opposed to telling us.
Spanish. Did you keep it or did you suppress it for a bit because, well, you're an American now, everybody spoke English. And so did you feel the need to, once you felt secure in speaking English, did you start to find yourself kind of like not using it anymore?
I started not using it because since I started going to school, I was obviously in ESL classes, and I picked up English fairly quick, fairly easily. And it's been my main language since then. Spanish is my first language. English is my second, but I speak English a lot more. And growing up, it was primarily English. Mm-hmm. Only time I really spoke Spanish was with my parents at home after school. But at school, it was English. Well, especially once I got, past first grade, first, second, third, and on. Mm-hmm. It was primarily English. And my brothers were English. My sister was English. And other family members was English, like cousins and some other uncles and aunts. And Spanish kind of took a back seat for many, many years. And every once in a while, I would have to speak Spanish, but I would forget it. And I would get mad at myself for that. I was like, how the hell am I Mexican-born and Spanish is like lost? Like I'm struggling with Spanish. I can't think of words correctly, what to say or how to respond to somebody in Spanish. Like it was something that kind of I had to deal with.
Even now?
Now it's a lot better.
I feel like half the time we don't have much of a choice being male in a Latino family. Like you have to subscribe to a very specific rule of what it is to be a male. And then here we both are as gay men in this environment. And so at what point did you kind of realize, oh shit, I'm not like my brothers, that I feel something else. This is something different from the rest of the family.
Well, the only difference between you and I is that you're the oldest and I'm the youngest. And I have two older brothers. And so I had to look up to them. In my mind, that was the epitome of being a male. My dad and my two older brothers. Mm-hmm. I started having these feelings of being gay, I want to say elementary. I think I knew since then that I had feelings towards a male. But I didn't do anything about it until much later in life.
Just park in the back of your head.
Yeah. I tried to do the whole, have a girlfriend, kiss a girl. And I did. And I did experience all of that, but it just didn't feel right to me. It didn't fulfill what I thought was love.
Yeah, I didn't do that at all.
All of my 20s, I led a double life. I had in my 21 is when I first had my first experience with a man. And I was so scared. And of course, this is before the apps. I think it was Yahoo chat groups. That's how far back it goes that I found some chat room. I don't remember the name of it, but there was a gay one, obviously, and there was all kinds of people in there. And I befriended this older man. He lived in Florida. And I don't know how it started. We just started chatting and it became like a nightly thing where we would just chat, talk about our day. And he would talk about his little escapades that he would have because he was fairly active. And I had none under my belt whatsoever. And so I would just kind of like live vicariously through him of what it was like. He was having like a gay lifestyle. And then I would gradually start meeting other people in those chat rooms again. And I finally met one that was fairly local. My friend in Florida, I would tell him about the whole thing. And he was like, he would encourage me, you should go, you should try it. Go for it. Have your first experience. Little by little, I just started going more and more into, I guess, the gay world, but on my own terms. Nobody was with me. I didn't tell anybody about it. The only person that knew was my chat friend in Florida.
I don't know what your coming out was like. Mine wasn't great.
It wasn't great?
And it wasn't great, yeah. I mean, my friends found out way before I told my parents. I mean, I officially told my closest friend by my early 20s, mid-20s. but I didn't tell my parents until my 30s.
Mhm.
My dad shut down in the coldest, ugliest voice, told me to leave. I would never be welcome in that house. And if I had the courage to say that truth to him, then he had the equal courage to tell me, you will never be welcome at this house again. And a voice I hope I never hear anybody ever hear in their lifetime, because it's a terrible thing to have a parent say, you mean nothing to us. And so it was really bad. And so for 2 years, my dad and I didn't talk. And my mom came around after 6 months, but it took a while for my dad to, and then he got Alzheimer's, and then that changed everything for the rest of his life with us. And if anything, the Alzheimer's was the best thing to happen, ironically enough, because he forgot all that ever happened.
I had my family, straight life, and my straight friends, who were actually my closest friends. And
did they know at all, the straight friends?
They always assumed. They always kind of had these thoughts. They later on, when I finally told them, I came out to them, they said that they would have conversations about me behind my back. I tried to figure it out, but they never asked me. And that's when I decided, you know what, this is it. And I am tired of living a double life. I'm tired of lying to people, not necessarily to myself, but to my family, my friends. And I need them to know the real me. And so then I decided that I was going to come out to my family and my closest friends, my best friends. And if they didn't accept me, then I would say bye. Friends or family, and they don't accept me, I don't need you in my life. So I had to come to terms with that, with myself first, that I'm willing to let that go if they didn't accept me. Like I'm going to stick to it, and whatever comes about it, then that's what it is. The big one was when I came out to my parents. After that, it was my parents. And I went to the house, and thankfully, it was just them two at the moment, and took them to the kitchen and just started talking. And I sat them down and I told them, like, hey, just wanted to know that for the past, I don't know, 10 plus years, I've been leading a double life, and this is the reason why I'm gay. And that's just like silence in the kitchen. And I'm like, holy shit, what's going to happen now? And so I just kept on talking how I met somebody, and it's very serious, and I think something special is going to happen. And that's what I'm letting you know. So I'm tired of hiding myself and to my family and my friends, and this is the real me. But I'm here to tell you that nothing's going to change. I'm the same person. You just know more about me now. And then, of course, my dad got super quiet. I mean, to the point where he had his head down. And naturally, my dad's always the talker. He's always the one that has something to say. And my mom would be the one that's, in the background. But this time it was my mom doing the talking and asking the questions. My dad decided to lift his head and ask me, have you gone to church and prayed and asked God if this is the right path for you? And I told him, this has nothing to do with God. And if that was the case, God has had 10 plus years to give me a sign that this is not the life for me. He hasn't done that. Yeah. I think the biggest thing for me, for my parents coming out, is they actually came to my wedding, my was the ceremony. When Scott and I got married, I knew my mom was coming with my sister. And then I called my sister, like, hey, are you guys on your way? She's like, yeah, I just picked up your parents. I'm like, wait, my dad's coming? She's like, yeah. I'm like, as if I wasn't already kind of nervous about the ceremony as it is, my dad's going to be there too.
Your Mexican dad's going to be standing
there
watching his youngest. His youngest going to be walking down the aisle with a man. That's a big deal.
Yeah, but he wore his Guayabera shirt, So I knew it. I'm like,
And your brothers?
They didn't go. I think my brothers took a little bit more time to get accustomed to it. But they're fine. They're totally fine now. Again, they like Scott. They adore him as well. They have no issues with our marriage whatsoever. Even though they're military and conservative, there's still no issues.
Looking back now, and at this point in your life, I mean, I don't need you to make a political statement, but I feel like you existing in this space as yourself, you obviously are very secure in who you are. I mean, that in itself is its own rebellion and its own resistance, because you endure. You continue to do your thing. You and Scott are very happy. You've been married for how many years now?
Wait on 10.
Yeah.
July.
Oh,
Yeah.
so a decade.
Yeah.
And so, what do you want your story to represent in the end? If you had a chance to kind of say, all right, if people are going to look back at José Magaña-Hartford and say, this is what this narrative means for the future, how do you want people to look at your story? What do you want them to say?
Wow. What brings people down or any situation is just kind of like taking what's going on at that moment and just letting it, dwell on you and break you down. And then you kind of like lose faith in either yourself or in humanity sometimes. But if you just keep moving forward, like this is my life. I have to kind of take care of my life or our life, spend my life together. Because in the end, those are the ones that really matter. Family matters, friends matter, but usually it has to be yourself. Put yourself first. Take care of yourself, and then with that, everything else just falls into place. And I think that's what's been helping us. We've been focusing on our life and not really letting the outside world like dictate what we have to do to be happy. We're just going to do our thing, continue with our career paths, our businesses, and just keep living. Just live life. Everything else is just a piece of paper.
It's amazing how all that happened in just your 45 years of life. Yeah. And just because your parents made a choice that you weren't privy to, obviously at 3, what could you possibly say to say, no, I don't want to go?
Exactly.
So in anything, they uprooted you to come here. But again, here you are and you created an amazing life.
Adapt and evolve.
Move forward.
Move forward.
All right. Thanks, Jose. And thank you for listening to Somos de la Jotería. Stay tuned for more episodes of Suddenly Jorge. Subscribe and stay in the know, mi gente. Hasta pronto.
Tómate esta botella conmigo.